The landmark lawsuit filed by Brian Flores against the NFL and several teams includes an allegation that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, was so intent on getting the first overall pick in 2020 that he allegedly offered Brian Flores $100,000 for each game the team lost in 2019. And there's already talk in league circles, and Peter, I'm sure you've heard it as well, and you alluded to the outcome in the last segment. If this is true, Stephen Ross has to go. In an age of legalized gambling, even without legalized gambling, the NFL was always founded on the notion that everyone tries to win every single game. It's why the NFL always looks the other way on any talk of tanking late in the season. Once a team's cause is lost, you're not going to make it to the playoffs. Who cares if you're 5-12 or 4-13 or 3-14? You're not in the playoffs. Every game you win knocks you farther down the stack in the draft order. But what the Dolphins intended to do, by all appearances and indications, was to treat all of 2019 like an effort to get in position to get the first pick in 2020. Sometimes you got to take your lumps, is what Stephen Ross was once heard saying that same year by, me. And it was in the context of losing short term to win long term. And if it had happened, he would have had Joe Burrow. I think one of the reasons Brian Flores got fired, I speculated on this, and the lawsuit supports it. The relationship went off the rails when Brian Flores said, I'm not going along with a full season tank. And when it becomes obvious that Joe Burrow is one of the great, not just young quarterbacks, but great quarterbacks, period, in the NFL, that's got to piss off a guy, as we said earlier, who is used to getting what he wants and doesn't want anyone telling him no. Stephen Ross in 2019 wanted the team he owns to suck badly enough that he could have the first pick in the draft, and it would have been Joe Burrow, and he's pissed off it didn't happen. Now, it's stunning to think along the way he offered $100,000 per loss to Brian Flores, and again, it's an accusation, but it's just one of those, it's like, man, it's so nutty. It gives it credibility. Like, if Brian Flores is committed to lying, there are far easier lies to tell than $100,000 per loss was offered to me by the owner of the team. So, Peter, bottom line, now, will the NFL investigate this, or will they just rally around Stephen Ross? That's the threshold question. Will they treat Ross the way they would treat a player who is accused of this kind of an affront to the integrity of the game? I don't think they will.
I mean, look at their statement 2 hours after the suit comes out. It's, we already know this is without merit. They're going to stand behind their guy. But there's no question in my mind. I don't think we in the media, I don't think the fans of the Miami Dolphins, I would hope that the fans of the Miami Dolphins and the media, that cover the NFL basically would treat this the way that the media treated and has treated the Washington football team case. In that we have seen this, Mike, over and over again. The NFL in the Washington football team case has basically said, nothing to see here, drop this story. And the people who have been the aggrieved parties in that story basically have said, there is something to see here, and we want you to see it. And it's the same thing in the Miami story. We need to see and we need to hear what the real truth is and whether Stephen Ross did this. Now, Mike, it's interesting. I don't know when. I really wish the one thing that was missing in this suit is when Brian Flores really was asked specifically. I wish we had a date that, he claims that Stephen Ross said, I'll give you $100,000, for each loss. Because, as this season wound down and as it became very apparent that, especially after Joe Burrow and LSU beat Alabama the way that they did, it became apparent that Joe Burrow was going to be a little bit higher in the pecking order than Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. Right or wrong. But that's what happened as November became December. Because listen, as November ended in 2019, the Cincinnati Bengals were 0-11, and the Miami Dolphins were 2-9. And what happened after that is that the Miami Dolphins in the month of December, or in the last 5 weeks of the season, ended the season with a 3-2 record. And the Bengals won 2 games, but still, the Bengals secured the right for the top pick in this draft. And, my feeling is by going 3-2 in that month, Brian Flores thought that he was doing the best thing for his team, his locker room, his franchise. And if it comes out that the owner wanted him to do something different than that, well, so be it. And Mike, I just want to say one other thing about this. It's a pragmatic thing. There's been a lot of discussion now about what the Bengals, could somebody have really wrestled the number 1 pick from the Cincinnati Bengals that year? And, we don't know. You couldn't have known in December of that year exactly what would have happened. But the ironic part of this, I've known Mike Brown for 38 years. And I can tell you without any doubt in my mind that if he decided that he was going to pick a name, didn't matter, as the number 1 pick in the draft, and it just so happened that Joe Burrow was that guy, absolutely unequivocally, you were not going to change his mind. But you couldn't know that in December. What you could know is that the Bengals, with the first pick in the draft, entering the month of December, 2 games behind the Bengals, it's going to be very hard to make up that thing unless you so purposely try to lose. And it turned out the Bengals won 2 games that month. I don't know who would have won the tiebreaker for the draft. But the point is that Brian Flores owes it to his team. He owes it to fair play to win as many games as he can. And kudos to him for getting a bad team to go 3-2 in the month of December that year.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.